Go to Fox and let's see what they had to say on this issue.
News of the morning, the federal government officially shutting down at midnight last night after Democrats and Republicans failed to strike an agreement to keep government funded through November. Fox Business's Madison Alworth live in Washington right now with the very latest. Madison.
Good morning, Maria. Yes, the government officially shut down this morning at 12 a.m., marking the first federal government shutdown in almost 7 years. The shutdown came after both Republicans and Democrats failed to pass their own respective versions of the bill on the Senate floor, with Republicans attempting to pass a 7-week clean continuing resolution. That needed 60 votes to pass, but instead failing by a 55-45 vote, with Senators John Fetterman, Catherine Cortez Masto, and Angus King joining with Republicans to vote for the legislation.
So right here, this is the most up-to-date information when it comes to the government shutdown, right? So they needed 60 votes. They were only able to get 52 out of the 53 Republicans. They needed 8 Democratic support on votes to reach 60. At first, they had John Fetterman, which was the one, and now Catherine Cortez Masto, as well as Angus King from the Democratic side, has come and agreed with the Republicans, right, to try to fund the bill for the new fiscal year. That would only lead us up to 55 votes. So we are now waiting for 5 more Democratic votes to support the funding bill for it to be funded and the government would no longer be shut down, right? So they don't have enough votes yet in support of the funding bill, right? There's a lot of Democrats that don't agree to the issues, and we'll get to the healthcare and things like that as the reasons why, we've had this issue when it comes to, approving these bills. But currently right now we have 3 Democrats that have moved over and agreed to the funding bill, but that still leaves us at 55 out of 60 votes. We need the 3 other votes from the Democratic side to get the funding bill passed.
Kentucky Republican Rand Paul voted against his colleague's bill. Senate Majority Leader John Thune expressed hope that more Democrats would defect.
All it takes is a handful of Democrats to join Republicans to pass the clean, nonpartisan funding bill that's in front of us. And I really hope that some of them will join us to reopen the government, resume bipartisan appropriations work, and get back to the business of the American people.
Republican leadership added that they believe there are more Democrats who are uncomfortable with the shutdown and would eventually vote to end it. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, however, claimed that Democrats were never invited to the negotiating table, calling it a partisan bill.
Their bill, they call it clean, we call it totally partisan. There was no input from Democrats. Not a single line in their bill had input from Democrats. They never consulted us. Thune didn't consult me. Johnson didn't consult Hakeem. And the bottom line is that we had a partisan bill.
So the argument is from a Democratic side, and again, I'm just looking to bring balance between the conversation. The Republican side states that they need 8 Democratic support. They got 3. They need 5 more. The Democratic side is saying, well, you guys never even allowed us to have our opinion within the bill. Y'all created a bill, which is your agenda, right? Based on what the president wants. And we was not given the ability to, to vote or give our thought process on what should be and what should be not. What should not be in the bill. So we're not going to support something that is not bipartisan, right? And again, we got to know what these words mean. If you don't know what partisan and bipartisan means, partisan basically means that it's one-sided. Bipartisan means it's two-sided and both sides agree on the bipartisan agreement, right? You'll hear that term used all the time, bipartisan, right? So right now he's saying that it is partisan. It is not bipartisan, which is the reason why the majority of the Democratic side is not agreeing to the funding bill currently at the moment.
Schumer did visit the White House Monday with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries to meet and negotiate with the president. And Trump has said that a lot of federal workers could permanently lose their jobs if an agreement is not reached soon. Currently, about 550,000 federal workers will go on furlough now that the government has shut down. The Senate will be back later this morning to try to come to an agreement. Maria?
All right, Madison, we'll be watching all of that. Thank you. Madison Allworth joining us. So, Ashley Davis, how do you see it? Federal workers will most likely get paid on October 5th for the last 2 weeks in September, but they're not going to get a paycheck on October 20th for the 2 weeks of October work.
Absolutely. They will get paid afterwards. And I think that's important once the shutdown's over. Listen, I don't like this at all. These are just political messages more than anything. But I think there's one major thing that we need to make sure that our viewers know, Maria, is that the entitlement programs will still be paid. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, TSA will still work. FEMA still will work. And so I think there's going to be a lot of fear mongering, but I think it's important that everyone knows that it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I spoke with U.S. Ambassador Jameson Greer yesterday at the New York Economic Club, and he said, look, I've got about 250 people around me, and we're going to be operating. So regardless of a shutdown, we're there in the U.S. Trade Representative's office. So there are offices that are ongoing regardless of this.
Well, shockingly, there have been 21 other government shutdowns since 1975. And they always get resolved. Sometimes they're ugly, but they do get resolved. And Republicans always blame Democrats, and Democrats always blame Republicans, because that's how the game is played. Sadly, Maria, for those of us who do work and continue to work and aren't in government, it almost seems like shutdowns, that's how business gets done in Washington.
Yeah.
It's shocking.
Well, I mean, look, they're calling it a Schumer shutdown because Chuck Schumer, they say, wanted a fight, wanted a shutdown because he's afraid to agree with the Republicans, because the last time he agreed with the Republicans, he was worried about a primary from AOC. But John Fetterman joined me on Sunday, and he was real clear. He was one of the few Democrats who actually voted to keep the government open. And here's why. Here's what he said. Watch.
It is always, always wrong to shut our government down. That is a core responsibility. I'm always going to vote against those things. And if it's the Republican side or now it's our side, especially with the kinds of chaos that we are facing after Kirk, and now there's a Cat 5 storm that might hit our nation too. Now, and you're willing to threaten us down. I was the only Democrat voting against that. And now that CR was the same CR from the Biden administration as well, too.
Right.
For me, I'm a big believer of, if you want to change the policies, win elections. And that's really the way democracy works.
And that is why John Fetterman voted to keep the government open. Now, what do you think about Senator Mike Rounds' idea? Senator Rounds is out with an idea, Republican from South Carolina, that would see those subsidies extended for 1 year. And that would be then followed by a 1 year phase down to return the tax credits to pre-COVID levels. Look, you can't say we want to get back to pre-COVID spending and then just say, look, we want the subsidies back in there.
Absolutely. Look, those subsidies are going to be worked out, Maria, and that's going to happen probably in a year-end package. It's not going to happen now. It's too difficult. And unfortunately, it doesn't need to happen right this minute, which is what Republicans are saying. I feel, though, that there are going to be a lot of Republicans that are never going to agree with these subsidies. I mean, they are Obamacare and they are difficult, but we're definitely not going to go back to what they're also asking for, which is to go back on the Medicaid cuts that we made with the One Big Beautiful Bill.
So we can see that healthcare is a major concern when it comes to this spending budget bill for the United States government on both sides, right? One side wants, healthcare to be privatized more, when it comes to the Republican side, and you have the Democratic side that does not want that to happen due to the fact that affordability for government premiums, not government premiums, but healthcare premiums are very high and able to impact the average American in a significant way, which then, hurts the average American when it comes to especially low income paying households when it comes to healthcare premiums, right? As well as when it comes to Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, and things like that, there is a total disconnect when it comes to both parties and what they agree upon when it comes to healthcare specifically.